Charles George Gordon, a name etched in the annals of history as both hero and enigma. A man of unshakable faith and iron will, Gordon's life was marked by extraordinary acts of courage, yet haunted by a single, fateful decision. Was his bravery a mark of greatness or a fatal flaw? How did one choice seal his destiny and the fate of thousands? To understand the man, we must unravel the threads of his storied life. Born on January 28, 1833, in Woolwich, England, Charles George Gordon seemed destined for a life of service. Raised in a military family, Gordon's upbringing emphasized discipline and duty, values that would define his career. By the age of 20, he had joined the Royal Engineers for the British military, where his technical skills and strategic mind quickly set him apart. The Taiping Rebellion, the stage for Gordon's transformation into legend, was a devastating civil war that erupted in China between the Qing dynasty and the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. The rebellion was not merely a clash of arms, but a battle over ideology and power. The Qing dynasty, already weakened by corruption, internal strife, and humiliation from the Opium Wars with Britain, faced an existential threat. The rebellion's leader, Hong Xiuquan, combined elements of Christianity with his own apocalyptic vision to rally millions to his cause, promising equality and divine justice under the heavenly kingdom of peace. The British became involved partly out of economic and strategic interests. Having established trade dominance in China through the Treaty of Nanking, Britain sought to protect its access to lucrative markets. A collapse of the Qing dynasty threatened to destabilize the region and jeopardize British commercial interests. Thus, when the Qing sought foreign assistance to suppress the rebellion, Britain saw an opportunity to both stabilize its trade partner and assert influence. Gordon's arrival in 1863 to command the ever-victorious army marked a turning point. The mercenary force, assembled to assist the Qing, had been plagued by disorganization and low morale. Gordon immediately set about transforming the army, instilling discipline and implementing strategies that reflected his engineering acumen.
The task before me was not just to fight, but to restore order in chaos.
Gordon later wrote,
"Victory without justice is no victory at all."
The rebellion's devastation was evident everywhere. Villages lay in smoldering ruins, rivers choked with corpses, and millions displaced in the wake of the fighting. Gordon's leadership brought both tactical brilliance and a semblance of humanity to the battlefield. He led from the front, often seen atop the ramparts, rallying his men under fire. Fellow officers were awed by his calm demeanor, while a Chinese official described him as a man who carried the weight of many nations on his shoulders. Through sheer determination and strategic brilliance, Gordon turned the tide of one of history's deadliest conflicts. His victory at Changzhou in 1864 was a masterclass in siege warfare, involving complex maneuvers that outflanked and dismantled the Taiping forces. Refusing monetary rewards from the Qing government, he famously declared,
"I leave all rewards to God."
This humility, paired with his battlefield success, cemented his status as a hero. Yet his writings reveal a man deeply contemplative.
"I am but an instrument in God's hands. If I succeed, it is His will. If I fail, it is His lesson."
Still, the moral complexities of supporting the Qing, a regime rife with corruption and internal decay, weighed heavily on him as he confided in his journals.
"Victory here is bittersweet. We stabilize a regime, but at what moral cost?"
Following his triumph in China, Gordon's next challenge took him to Africa. In 1874, he arrived in Equatoria, a province in Ottoman-controlled Sudan, to to combat the trans-Saharan slave trade. The horrors he witnessed there left an indelible mark. The slave markets were a vision of hell. Emaciated men, women, and children were shackled like livestock, their eyes hollow with despair. The cacophony of traders haggling over human lives mixed with the anguished cries of the enslaved, while the oppressive heat amplified the stench of sweat, blood, and despair. Gordon's righteous fury and moral conviction propelled him to confront this abomination in the sight of God. His resolve was captured in his writings.
To witness such inhumanity and remain silent would be to betray the very essence of faith.
He dismantled supply chains, intercepted caravans, and liberated countless individuals, often at great personal risk. On one occasion, Gordon narrowly escaped an ambush by armed slavers. His entourage, outnumbered and surrounded, fought desperately in the suffocating heat of the desert, with Gordon himself taking up arms to defend the mission. Reflecting on this perilous encounter, he wrote in his journal,
"The work is fraught with danger, but to falter now would be to abandon God's children to despair."
Gordon confronted the trade with unyielding resolve, dismantling supply chains and freeing countless enslaved individuals. His efforts were not without peril. Despite these dangers, Gordon's determination never wavered. He often ventured into hostile slave trading hubs, where armed resistance was a constant threat. In one of his most daring efforts, he led a surprise raid on a notorious slave depot, freeing hundreds of captives and sending a clear message to those profiting from human misery. His unyielding resolve earned him the respect of allies and the hatred of slavers. Still, he pressed on, driven by his belief that every life he saved was a victory for humanity.
"If I perish,"
he declared,
"let it be known that I perished in God's work."
Beyond duty, Gordon was driven by an insatiable thirst for discovery.
"The Nile is not merely a river,"
he wrote.
"It is a thread that binds humanity to its earliest civilizations. To trace its course is to trace the hand of God."
His work illuminated the complexities of the region and provided insights that shaped the understanding of Africa's geography. In 1877, Gordon's responsibilities expanded as he was appointed Governor-General of Sudan. The region's corruption and entrenched power structures were formidable obstacles. Gordon tackled these challenges head-on, instituting reforms that both unified the fragmented territories and antagonized local elites. His journals from this time reveal his inner turmoil.
"I am torn between my duty to reform and the knowledge that such reforms may lead to resentment and violence."
For a brief period, Gordon sought respite in England, working on fortifications along the Thames in Gravesend. There, he became a beloved figure, dedicating himself to humanitarian efforts. He provided food and shelter for the poor and mentored local youth. This phase of his life showcased a quieter, more compassionate side of Gordon, yet his restless spirit would not let him stay. In 1883, Gordon traveled to Jerusalem, immersing himself in biblical history with the fervor of a man seeking divine clarity. Fascinated by the city's sacred geography, he spent hours studying ancient texts and local lore. It was during these studies that Gordon identified what he believed to be the site of Golgotha, the hill where Jesus was crucified. Unlike the traditionally accepted location within the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Gordon's chosen site was a rocky knoll outside the city walls, which he believed matched the biblical descriptions more closely. This location, now known as Gordon's Calvary, became a focal point of his spiritual reflections. Standing on the hill, Gordon felt an overwhelming connection to the events of Christ's crucifixion.
Here, in this sacred place,
he wrote,
I am reminded of the fragility of human ambition and the eternal nature of God's will.
He described the hill's stark appearance, its rugged contours, the quiet air of solemnity, as deeply moving. During his time in Jerusalem, Gordon's faith deepened further. He often shared his thoughts in letters, writing,
Jerusalem holds the secrets of the ages, and in its stones, one can read the story of humanity's redemption.
His identification of Golgotha, while controversial, reflected his unwavering commitment to both historical and spiritual truth. Gordon's stay in Jerusalem left an indelible mark on his soul, solidifying his belief that his life's work was but a small thread in the tapestry of divine providence. In 1884, Gordon faced the crisis that would define his legacy. The Mahdist uprising in Sudan, led by Muhammad Ahmad, was not merely a rebellion, but a religious and political movement aimed at overthrowing Ottoman Egyptian rule and establishing an Islamic state under the Mahdi's leadership. Muhammad Ahmad declared himself the Mahdi, the guided one, prophesied to restore Islam to its purest form. His call to arms resonated with the disenfranchised and oppressed, sparking a revolutionary fervor across Sudan. As the Mahdi's forces advanced, thousands of refugees fled into Khartoum, seeking safety from the relentless violence. The city, already strained by limited resources, was soon overwhelmed. Streets swarmed with desperate families, their faces etched with hunger and fear. Gordon's arrival on February 18, 1884, offered a glimmer of hope. Sent by the British government to oversee the city's evacuation, Gordon was appalled by the dire situation. Unable to abandon the people, he resolved to stay.
I am in honor bound to defend the city to the last,
he wrote to London. Gordon's engineering expertise turned Khartoum into a formidable temporary fortress. He constructed trenches, reinforced walls, and devised clever defenses to stall the Mahdi's forces. However, the relentless siege took its toll. The Siege of Khartoum was a study in despair. Disease spread like wildfire, the air was heavy with the stench of death, and the once vibrant city fell into a haunting silence as supplies dwindled. Gordon's engineering expertise turned Khartoum into a temporary fortress, but he knew reinforcements would not come in time.
The city is a lamb among wolves,
he wrote,
and I am its shepherd.
On January 26, 1885, the Mahdi's forces launched a ferocious assault. Eyewitnesses described a city engulfed in chaos as defenders fought to the bitter end. Gordon, refusing to flee, was reportedly killed on the steps of the governor's palace, sword in hand. His death became the stuff of legend, a symbol of both heroism and tragedy. Winston Churchill later reflected on Gordon's final stand, writing,
"He was a man of destiny, whose courage in the face of certain death elevated him to the realm of legend. Yet legends are not without their shadows."
The fall of Khartoum and Gordon's death sparked outrage in Britain, igniting debates over his decision to stay. Was it an act of ultimate bravery or reckless hubris? Gordon's unwavering conviction, while inspiring, also underscored the moral complexities of empire, duty, and sacrifice. As Churchill poignantly noted,
"The man who would not yield became a martyr to his own ideals."
Beyond his death, Gordon's prolific writings continue to offer insights into his complex mind. His reflections on faith, morality, and duty illuminate a man constantly grappling with the contradictions of his missions.
To serve God,
He once wrote,
is to accept the trials he sets before us, even when they lead to suffering.
Modern historians debate Gordon's legacy. Was his decision to remain in Khartoum an act of ultimate bravery or reckless hubris? Did his reforms in Sudan bring stability, or did they serve as tools of empire? Such questions remain open, inviting reflection on the complexities of leadership and conviction. Ultimately, Charles George Gordon's life is a study in contrasts: bravery and hubris, faith and pragmatism, sacrifice and tragedy. His story invites us to reflect on the enduring tension between duty and morality, and the costs of unwavering conviction. What do you think? Was Gordon's stand at Khartoum an act of ultimate bravery or a tragic miscalculation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed exploring this fascinating chapter of history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to War and Wisdom in History, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest stories. Stay curious, seek wisdom, and we'll see you in the next chapter of history.